Peter, you going to push the button? There we go. Brethren, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited. My watch just told me how happy it was with me. I just stood up. So, well, I'm great. I'm glad somebody's excited like me. Tell you what, we didn't start last hour out with a prayer. Anything going on that's been mentioned that maybe we need to remember in our prayers besides Marcia? Anything else? We've had a brother, some of you may know him. He's been around Trenton for 96 years. His name was Bill Newby. He passed away. His wife, Margie, who was 95, 94, died last year. And he just passed. And he's, you only get, there's only so many members that are faithful, for 70 plus years, married they had their 74th wedding anniversary, I believe it was. Just a consummate example of just about everything. So, it's good though. Him and Margie can see each other again, and man lives his life like that. He's preached his funeral, hadn't he? Unfortunately, they're going to make me do it again tomorrow, but great man. Let's go to God in prayer, shall we? Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for this time that we have together. So thankful for this crew that has stuck together for 13 weeks. Father, sitting here late in the night, anxious to study your word. We're so thankful for them. We pray, Lord, that you'd bless them and help us to be the kind of people you would have us to be. Thankful for the school here. We're especially mindful of Marcy. We hope that she gets to feeling better, that these headaches will leave her alone and she can get back to her feeling like doing something, Lord. We pray for her. All this we ask in your Son's name. Amen. Okay, so let's move on to chapter 2. All right. Why is God doing this? Well, Jehovah has become the same as the enemy. He is, ready to pounce on them, if you will. Jehovah had been in the cloud, protecting Israel. Now he's in the cloud as an avenger upon Israel. Let's look at the first 10 verses of this of chapter 2, which I could do that easier if I'd learned how to use this Bible program I have. There we go. How hath the Lord covered the daughter of Zion with a cloud in his anger, and cast down from heaven unto the earth the beauty of Israel, and remembered not his footstool in the day of his anger. Imagine that. The cloud that had guided them in the wilderness during the day, the fiery pillar by night called the Shekinah, is now something to cover them. The Lord hath swallowed up all the habitation, of course it's figurative, hath swallowed up all the habitations of Jacob, and hath not pitied. He hath thrown down in his wrath the strongholds of the daughter of Judah. Verse 3, he has cut off in his fierce anger all the horn of Israel. A deer or any animal that has a horn, that's its primary weapon, its primary defense. Once that is removed, it's not going to make it too well in the wild against the other creatures, that have horns. And so that's always been a symbol of strength. And of course, Israel's horn has been broken. Verse 4, he hath bent his bow like an enemy. You imagine God bending his bow aimed at you? He stood with his right hand as an adversary, and slew all that were pleasant to the eye in the tabernacle of the daughter of Zion. He poured out his fury like fire. Imagine that. The Lord was an enemy. He hath swallowed up Israel. He hath swallowed up all her palaces. He hath taken violently away his tabernacle. As if it were a garden, he hath destroyed the places of the assembly. Verse 7, the Lord hath cast off all his altar. He hath abhorred his sanctuary, the very things that God had given them, instructed them to have, and now he is the one who's destroying. The Lord hath purposed to destroy the wall, the daughter of Zion. You ever watch them buildings blow up? They got them wired, and man, they'll blow up, and however they want them to fall, it'll fall. Or if they want them to implode, they can do it. I was watching this one. It was a big smokestack, and the old boy was on one of them bucket things. And he's just beating on that thing, and it fell. It fell right straight down on top of him. I thought, well, that'd be my kind of luck. But that takes some, to get that to happen, that takes some ciphering. That takes some figuring out. God figured it out. He stretched out his line, and he had destroyed the wall. No problems. Just wiped it out. Her gates are sunk into the ground. He hath destroyed and broken her bars. Her king and her princes are among the Gentiles now. The elders, verse 10, the daughter of Zion, sit upon the ground and keep silent. They have dust upon their heads, and the virgins of Jerusalem hang down their heads to the ground. Everything that was good is now not good. And notice what happens in verse 11. The destruction of the daughter of my people, because the children and the suckling swoon in the streets of the city. Nothing to eat. They say to their mothers, where is corn and wine? When they swooned as they wounded in the streets. There's nothing to eat. The children are starving. What thing shall I take to witness for thee, O daughter of Jerusalem? Notice, that I may comfort thee, O virgin daughter of Zion, for thy breach is great, is like the sea. Who can heal thee? Thy prophets have seen vain and foolish things for thee. In other words, they telling them things that were false. And they have not discovered thine iniquity to turn away thy captivity, but have seen for thee false burdens and causes of banishment. All that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their heads at the daughter of Jerusalem, saying, is this the city that men call the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? Here people have talked about it. This is one of the prettiest places. God of heaven dwells there, and now it's shameful. One of the things I think that had to sting, when Nathan is given his thou art the man, Remember what he told David about the enemies of God? What did he tell David? Yeah, you've sinned. You killed a man. You've taken a woman you shouldn't have. But what did he say about the enemies of God? You've given them an opportunity to talk evil, to say bad things about God, because here you are supposed to be representative of God, and you've done this. You've given them an opportunity. The Lord hath done that which he hath devised, fulfilled his words, saw it coming. Verse 18, their heart cried to the Lord, O wall of the daughter of Zion, let tears run down like a river day and night. Give thyself no rest, nor let thine apple of thine eye cease. Arise, cry out in the night, in the beginning of the watches, pour out thine heart. You can see it's over and over. Verse 20, behold, O Lord, consider to whom thou hast done this. Shall the women eat their fruit? And that's what's terrible. Everything's been terrible, but this gets worse. And they were told that this would happen. When parents would become so hungry, ladies would become so hungry that they would eat their fruit, their children. And children of a span long. A span's about from your fingertips to your elbows. Brethren, you can probably take a look at me and see I haven't had a whole lot of experience with hunger. I try to stay away from it as far as I can. I'm always anticipating it, so I'm always one step ahead of it, you know what I'm saying? But to be so hungry, that just says, shall the priest and the prophet be slain in the sanctuary of the Lord? That's exactly what happened. The young and the old lie on the ground in the streets. My virgins, my young. It didn't matter to those troops when they stormed that place. Whether you were old, on a cane, bent over, young, strapping, killed them. Slain them in thine anger, and thou hast killed and not pitied. Thou hast called, as in a solemn day, my terrors round about, so that in the day of the Lord's anger none escaped nor remained. Those that I have swaddled and brought up hath my enemy consumed. My heritage, my children, and they're all gone. Then in chapter 3, I think we find something that's just really, really interesting. Because in all this calamity, Jeremiah writes, God is righteous. He says, I am the man that hath seen the affliction of thy rod of his wrath. He hath led me and brought me into darkness, but not into light. Surely against me he has turned. He turned against his hand against me all the day. My flesh and my skin hath he made old. He hath broken my bones. He hath builded against me, and all these things are set against me. Verse 7, he hath hedged about me, and I cannot get out. I'm trapped. He hath made my chain heavy. I'm stuck in this, if you will. He was unto me, verse 10, as a bear lying in wait, and as a lion in secret places. Isn't that terrible? The one who was your protector, the one who loved you, the one that's done everything for you, and now he's become an enemy of such ferociousness that he lie in wait as a bear and a lion in a secret place to destroy. Verse 12, we've already seen this. Here we go again. He hath bent his bow, and he has set me as a mark for the arrow. He has caused the arrows of his quiver to enter into my reins. I was a derision to all my people in their song all the day. He hath filled me with bitterness. He hath made me drunken with wormwood, or a very foul drink, bitterness. He hath also broken my teeth with gravel stones. I can't imagine that. Can you imagine trying to eat dirt and having pebbles and stuff that? And thou hast removed my soul from peace. I forget prosperity. Again, remember my affliction, my misery, the wormwood, the gall, that junk that we have in our stomachs that you don't want to belch up. My soul hath them still in remembrance and is humbled in me. This I recall to my mind. And then lo and behold, what do we have? Stuck right in the middle of that is what I think is one of the most beautiful songs that we used to sing all the time in camp. So I'm going to come over there with y'all. We're going to try to do this together or destroy it together, one of the two. And the terrible thing about this is I have a microphone on. So is there a microphone out here for the class? Peter, is there a microphone out here just for the class? I don't know. I guess I'm expecting him to answer. Hey, man, can you kill my mic? Do the people have a microphone, like when they're asking questions and stuff? Just me? Well, I'm going to take it off and lay it on the table while we sing, because I sure wouldn't want them to just hear me. So let's try this. The great thing about a song like this is that once you sing it and you've mastered it, well, you've mastered some verses. But what's great, I've loved this song. I loved it way before I ever knew what it was talking about, because I thought it was a happy song, a song to talk about. Well, it is. And look where it is, where it's stuck, right in the middle of the weeping, of the crying of Jeremiah. And yet Jeremiah is writing, God, you're righteous. You're right. We were wrong. And then he talks about God's faithfulness. So let me put this thing over here. So if anybody ever does watch this one day, they won't go, what in the world happened? I hope they're all okay. So let's try this together. If you don't know it, fake it, right? Fake it till you make it. Isn't that what they say nowadays? All right. We only have a couple of ladies, so y'all gotta do your part. Well, then we gotta answer, okay? You ready? The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in Him. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in Him. Therefore I will hope in Him. I tell you what, for a bunch of people at 9:15 tonight, that don't sound too bad. We might have to make us a recording. What do you think? I just think that is amazing as you're reading what we've just read in chapter 1, what we have just read in chapter 2, and in chapter 3 it ain't getting no better. And then smack in the middle of that is this great song, I will hope in Him. The Lord is good to those who wait for him. Psalms 27, verse 14. Wait on the Lord. Again, I say, wait. And that's what these folks have got to do. They've been told they were going to go into captivity, but Jeremiah is also the one who said you're going to be there 70 years. And later on, remember a fellow is reading his book, says, uh-oh, it's about that time. Remember what his name is? Daniel. Daniel's been reading in the book of Jeremiah and says, whoa, man, we're about there. And so you have that beautiful prayer in Daniel chapter 9 where he confesses the sins of the people and the times for them to go back, and that's exactly what they're going to do. And the guts that just all of this. And by the way, this is one of 3, I think it is, or maybe 4 books that are read at all the major feasts. That the Jews still have today. Thought so much of it. And that's something that just kept going, from the return. And by the way, where can we find the return of the Jews? Where do we find that in the Bible? Ezra, another book, and what's the other one? Follows right after it. Nehemiah, right? You got a bunch of folks going back. Ezra's the one where we find Zerubbabel going back with that first wave. They get to going at it pretty good, right? 20 years later, they still ain't built the temple. So you got Haggai and Zechariah, I believe it is, that start writing saying, come on, we got to get this done. And so then or Zephaniah, boy, anyway, y'all check me out on that. They build the temple, but they don't build the wall. Still got a lot of problems, but it's great, because Ezra starts teaching the law there in chapter 7, and they put away their foreign wives and is trying to do right. And then, lo and behold, every now and then you got to have a leader rise up. Nehemiah is one of those men. You got to love Nehemiah. If you like westerns, you got to like Nehemiah. He grabbed people's beards. I mean, man's for real when he'll come up and grab hold of your beard, pull your hair, And I love what he told those people that's camping outside the city. They were selling inside on the Sabbath. He said, we ain't doing that. And so they said, okay, we'll just move outside and we'll sell on the walls. He goes out there and says, he ain't doing that either. He says, if I catch you out here again, remember what he said? I love it. He says, I'm going to lay hands on you. Grown man tell you he's going to lay hands on you. You need to pay attention to what you're doing, don't you? All right, let's go ahead and jump over into chapter 4. Chapter 4 again goes back to I erased it, but it goes back to our A through Z, or Aleph through Tau, if you want to impress your friends, right? How is the gold become dim? How is the most fine gold changed? The stones of the sanctuary are poured out in the top of every street. The precious sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold, how they are esteemed as earthen pitchers, the work of the hands of the potter. Even the sea monsters draw out the breast. They give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my people has become cruel, like the ostriches in the wilderness. Remember what I told you before about Hebrew? There's a lot of things that we don't know what they mean because they're nouns, all right? And that is that bird over there. And so you have no context, so you just, okay, it's a bird. But you don't know anything else about it. And so that's why sometimes you do comparative reading, and I encourage that. If you have a couple of different translations you like to look at, make them good translations now. Don't make them yeehaw translations. Don't be getting on that Cabbage Patch Bible stuff, Get the good ones. But you'll see sometimes differences. You're going like, well, how in the world did they get that? Well, just remember, on a lot of those nouns, we really don't know, what they were talking about. Notice number 7 is something we're very familiar with. Her Nazarites were purer than snow. Remember, you had to take a vow, and then you had to wear certain clothes. You couldn't drink certain things. You had to be careful what you ate, and you had to let your hair grow. And it was a very solemn time where these people totally dedicated themselves to God. He says they were whiter than milk. They were more ruddy in body than rubies. Their polishing was of sapphire. But now their visage, their appearance is blacker than a coal. They are not known in the streets. Their skin cleaveth to their bones. It is withered. It has become like a stick. You ever notice when you see somebody you hadn't seen in a while, and you didn't know it, but you can figure it out pretty quick that they've been ill because their color's bad. You know, you're just like, you know, what's happening? And sometimes it can be a deficiency. Sometimes it can jaundice and so forth. You know, you can tell by just looking at them that their skin is, they're not staying inside because they've been exposed, you know. Right now they're on a march, right, all the way to Babylon. Notice, they that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger. Well, what does he mean by that? He'll even go on and say it's better for Sodom and Gomorrah than it is for us. And why would he say that? Sodom and Gomorrah's death was what? Pretty instantaneous. I mean, I ain't never been hit with a meteor from space, but I think it would probably take care of you, right? You know, fire and brimstone. I think you'd be like, hey, what? You know, and you're done. But not Judah, not what they've been through. Not only are they going to have to go through this year and a half of not getting proper nutrition and just all the stress that would go with being under siege, but now they've got this forced march, if you will, that's going to take them hundreds of miles to Babylon. Verse 11, the Lord hath accomplished his fury. He hath poured out his fierce anger. He hath kindled a fire in Zion, and he hath devoured the foundations thereof. It's done. The kings of the earth and all the inhabitants of the world may not have believed that the adversary and the enemy should have entered in the gates of Jerusalem, but it's here. For the sins of her preachers, her prophets, the iniquities of her priests that have shed the blood of the just in the midst of her. What was that? What does that tell you? That, you know, theocracy, the priests and those were the lawgivers. They were also the judicial part of, and so what have they been doing? Well, it sounds like they've been taking bribes, and they've been finding those that weren't guilty, and executing people that had no reason to be executed. They have wandered as blind men in the streets. They have polluted themselves with blood. You ever watch them crime shows, you know, where they got to get that, I forget what they call it. They keep bottles of it, you know, and they spray it. What's that junk called? Come on, you CSI fans. It's pitiful, ain't it? Well, anyway, I almost had it. No, I didn't. But anyway, they say, luminol. And what happens? They spray that on there, and they turn on that black light, and poof, anything in that blood, you can see it. You don't need one of those here. It's everywhere. Blood's everywhere. They have polluted themselves with blood so that men could not touch their garments. They're soaked. They cried unto them, depart ye as unclean, depart, touch not. When they fled away and wandered, they said among the heathen, they shall no more sojourn. Even the heathen didn't want to be around them. The anger of the Lord hath devoured them. He will no more regard them. They respected not the persons of the priests. They favored not the elders. As for us, our eyes have yet failed for vain help. Verse 19, our prosecutors were swift as eagles of heaven. They pursued us upon the mountains. They laid way for us in the wilderness. It was like we didn't even have a chance. And of course they didn't when the God's against you. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, that dwellest in the land of Uz. The cup also shall pass through unto thee. Thou shalt be drunken, and thou shalt make thyself naked. You Edomites think that this is just, you're glad this is happening to us? It's coming. The punishment of thine iniquity is accomplished, O daughter of Zion. He will no more carry thee away into captivity. He will visit thine iniquity, O daughter of Edom. Close on a word of hope, a little anyway. Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us. Consider and behold our reproach. Our inheritance is turned to strangers, houses to aliens. People are living in our homes. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are as widows. We have drunken our water for money, and wood is sold unto us. Our wood, stuff that we had. Our necks are under persecution. We labor and have no rest. We have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread. We've had to buy it. Our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. You know, brethren, a man will not stand up and give an account for another man's sins, his father's sins. But that doesn't mean he won't have to go through some difficulties. You know, you see those poor little kids in Africa, you know, they like to put their pictures on there, the swollen bellies and so forth, and you're just like, oh man, you know. And then you realize there's millions of dollars of aid going in there all the time, foodstuffs. And you're like, well, what's happening to it? And what's happening is those children are bearing, just like here, the sins of their fathers. A lot of the money that went into those countries has been turned into weapons. And a lot of that food that's gone into those countries has been sold and the money taken to buy weapons. And they're fighting over something that ain't worth having. You know, oh, we're going to be the power. You know, we're going to be, and it's just those little kids. They ain't done anything to anybody. But they are suffering because their parents, suffering because the men who run the country, the government, is just so worried about itself that let his people die. Servants have ruled over us, so there's none that deliver us out of their hand. We got our bread in the peril of our lives because of the sword in the wilderness. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. That's repeated over and over in the Bible, and I've read people talk about that. I have never seen somebody so hungry that they turned ashen, but I guess that makes sense. You know, that if you don't have the nutrients and stuff to keep your body built up. I know we don't like to read about it, but verse 11, they ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the cities of Judah. Women, a lot of women lost their virginity to rape. They were taken by those soldiers and abused. A lot of women that weren't virgins, same. The princes are hanged up by their hands. The faces of the elders are not honored. They took the young men to grind. The children fell under the wood. In other words, they took our young people, those that were able, and they made them do forced labor. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music. All the things that we just took for granted and loved is gone. The joy of our heart is ceased. Our dance is turned into mourning. The crown is fallen from our heads. Woe unto us that we have sinned. For this our heart is faint. For these things our eyes are dim. Because of the mountain of Zion, which is desolate, the foxes walk upon it. Thou, O Lord, remainest forever. Thy throne from generation to generation. Wherefore dost thou forget us forever and forsake us for so long a time? Turn thou us unto thee, O Lord, and we shall be turned. Renew our days as of old. But thou hast utterly rejected us. Thou art very wroth against us. But I think in verse 20 and 21 you see that God, turn with me to Psalms 13 real quick, and this will be it. Psalms 13 is one of my favorite Psalms. Because we hear, one of the things about Psalms is God's not speaking to us. You hear us speaking to God. And notice what the Psalm of David says. How long wilt thou forget me, O Lord? You ever feel like that? You feel like things have been going so badly for you that God has somehow forgotten you? He says, forever? And I'm in the, KJV says, how long wilt thou hide thy face from me? Verse 2, how long shall thou take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. I love how he switches this in verse 5. But I have trusted in thy mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I think we see a glimpse of that in the book of Lamentations, where basically they're gone into captivity. Times are awful. They remember everything that's happened that's so bad. Yet there's a glimmer of hope. And that is that God has told them they're going home. They're going to go home. They're going to be restored to the land that they have left. But they're going to have to be faithful this time. Brethren, I hope you've gotten something from this class. I know that I have. I know, but like Brother Clark said, I see why you don't spend a lot of time in Lamentations. It's just, woe is me. But the thing about it, what is it a perfect picture of? Sin. What sin will do. Sin will do it to a person. It'll do it to a family. It'll do it to a nation. Beautiful city, beautiful children of God. Everything was laid out for them, but it just wasn't good enough. Boy, I appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a wonderful month off. Those of you who are coming back in the spring, Brother Mark is going to be teaching. What are you teaching, Mark? There you go. Was there something else you was going to teach? Oh, you got 8 weeks. You got a short class, right? 8 weeks to get. Good luck with that. I'll pray for you. How about that? Yeah, I'll pray for you. I have. He's going. Daniel. Boy, we just nailed these prophets. Boom, 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 huh? Outstanding. Brother Lewis, would you be kind enough to direct us in a closing prayer? Amen. Boy, it's always a good thing to have Jim Lewis bring your name before the God of heaven. I'll tell you what. Hey, appreciate you guys.